7th day of May. Today's class graciously sponsored by Isaac and Mazal Mercado Masri Le'ilui Nishmat, her beloved father, Simon Atia Ben Sofia, Alav Shalom. Additionally, today's class dedicated by my family and I, Le'ilui Nishmat, my grandfather, Eliyahu Pinhas Ben Mazal Halevi, Alav Shalom, that today is his Askara. Iratzon that to the words of Torah, both Neshamot have an Aliyah in Gan Eden. Amen. Today, before we start with the class, I'd like to discuss the some highlights of the life of my grandfather, Alav Shalom, which I must tell you in advance, I don't remember anything about him. He passed away when I was a baby, literally. The only thing I remember about him are the pictures that I saw throughout my life. But if you may remember, when I spoke about my grandmother's yortzeit, Bahia Bat Farha, alayha shalom, I mentioned that my grandmother made an extreme decision that proved to be very obvious. There was a necessity to do so, and is related to when my grandparents, after arriving from Halab in the early 1900s, decided to try their mazal in a province of Buenos Aires, maybe like a couple of hours drive from the main capital, where the hub of the community was. My mother actually was born in that part of the province, and the Jewish life was almost non-existent. And my grandmother sensed that staying in that location will not be suitable, spiritually speaking, for the family. So she made the bold decision of telling my grandfather, the one that we're remembering today, that when the school year was going to be over, they are moving or they are moving. And lo and behold, they moved. My grandfather accepted my grandmother's decision, and he liquidated whatever they had back then in the early or maybe mid 50s, more or less, and they returned back to Buenos Aires, where eventually my mother meets my father and they get married. I am here. But what's the happy ending of this story, or the unfortunate ending of the story? That anyone that stayed behind in that part of the province, there is barely Jewish reminder today. Assimilation. Regretfully, that's what happened to many families. So I don't know the zechut of my grandparents. I'm sure is great because Baruch Hashem, their grandchildren and great-grandchildren are followers and learners of Torah. It's mas zechut. I'm the least observant from all of them. Imagine. I know I made you laugh, but it's true. I have heavyweight cousins, in Israel, in Brazil, in Argentina. Baruch Hashem, great family members, great Bnei Torah. And I have no doubt that the bold decision of my grandmother and maybe my grandfather, because he listened to my grandmother, he could have said, forget about it, we're not moving, ta. But Baruch Hashem, he listened, and we see the happy ending in front of you. With that being said, let's continue with our daily message of Sefirat Omer. Today is the 24th day of the Omer. We know well that today we have a very interesting combination. Moshe Rabbeinu, the host of the week, and Yaakov Avinu is the guest of honor of Moshe. So it says the following, that the midah of Yaakov is the midah of emet. It's a pasuk that we say in our daily prayers. Titen emet leYaakov. Give the truth to Yaakov. The Gemara writes that the rubber stamp of Hakadosh Baruch Hu is emet, and there is a pasuk that says Moshe emet veTorato emet. Who says this pasuk? Korah, the famous Korah, that the earth opened up and swallowed him. Every Rosh Chodesh, Korah says Moshe is the truth, and the Torah is the truth, and we are the deceitful ones. So Yaakov and Moshe, Yaakov Avinu representing the Emet, and the Torah, it's called Emet. It's a magnificent combination. So what is the message of today? So here he brings a very interesting exercise, and it says the importance of learning Nevi'im and Ketubim, to learn about the prophets of the Jewish people and to learn the chronicles of the Jewish people. When I was a child, the Chronica was a newspaper, was a cheap newspaper, right? Came out every afternoon in Argentina. Back then, in my younger days, they used to have two types of paper: the morning paper and the afternoon paper. And the afternoon paper had two editions: the early afternoon and the evening edition. What was the difference? The news, soccer games, etc. So I was an avid reader of newspapers, right? Okay, I'm an avid, now I don't read papers because who reads papers? Okay, the only paper I read is the Jewish paper from New York, etc., or the community or the Jewish magazines, etc., newsletters. But back then, as a child, I was an avid reader of newspapers. I knew every section what it was. I knew the commentaries. I know what the comics were. I knew how to read. And going back retroactively, you are amazed of how life changed. Today, newspapers are mostly bankrupt. Why? Because of the e-edition. You know what a newspaper is? It's in paper, something that comes out every day, and has black and white pictures or color pictures. It used to be heke, this thing. Now is yani a tissue is thicker than a newspaper. But I ask you a question: why does the Sefirat Omer today tells me go read the book of the Nevi'im and the book of the Ketubim? Because if a person really spends some time learning about the history of Am Israel, and you learn about the scenarios and the situations and the challenges and the famine and the droughts and the wars that the Jewish people endure throughout our history of over 3,000 years, it's an unbelievable miracle that we are alive. So it says that when a person learns these books, and I'm how do I say this? That topic attracts me. I used to learn more in the past, thanks to the classes that we have in the shul, in the book of Nevi'im and Ketubim. And already the ladies will select what's going to be the next class once we finish the Pirkei Avot. Be'ezat Hashem, we're looking at Shlomo HaMelech, Mishle, Kohelet, which are unbelievable books for day-to-day messages. It says it gives a person the appreciation of what Am Israel went through, and Am Israel is able to remain alive despite all the challenges and difficulties. You know, like some people read about the Holocaust, or some people read about the modern wars of Israel, or some people learn books about the Inquisitions or about the Crusades from only from Torah perspective. I'm not telling you Hollywood perspective or somebody that knows not much, but there are many wonderful books, Torah oriented, that they talk about the great Hachamim of Am Israel. I heard that any day now, any day, it will be coming out a book out of a art scroll about Hacham Baruch. Yes. Okay, many people's rabbi, not the only one. Okay, but it's gonna come out. If maybe a year or two ago they came out a book about Hacham Yom Tov Yadid. Before that about Hacham Obadiah Yosef. In other words, when the Hachamim, he said, I remember Hacham Baruch. Of course, many of us remember Hacham Baruch. But when you read their life, you read the biography, you read the hardships and the difficulties that they had to overcome, and then you understand, now I understand how someone that went through so many challenges can become so great. Because the challenges, the way it says David HaMelech, that the challenges only made David HaMelech stronger and greater. Many times people say, oh, the nisayon, the chase, the test is too difficult. Our rabbis tell us that often the test that we are exposed to is God sending us a message by telling us, I believe in you, that you are able to climb to the next level. But in order to do that, we need to have that bump called a nisayon. And I'm not saying that every nisayon is very easy. You know what, somebody came to me and asked me now, Rabbi, I want your permission not to learn anymore in the morning and go to work. I said, and you think that I'm going to give you this permission on an elevator ride? I need to sit down with you. I need to understand what's going on. But to suddenly tell God, okay, God, I'll see you tonight. It's not so easy. You think that it's easy to change something that you have been doing for a while. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to say to him, I understand, reassess your day. Forget about it. Reassess your day. But I cannot just say, okay, that will not be the proper answer as a Jew, as a rabbi. Now, let's go. Next. Ben Adam la Havero. Yesterday, we were discussing in part how powerful is to minimize or to remove yourself from an argument. And we discussed Shammai, Hillel, Korah, and company. But today's message is that what happens if you have, and what I'm going to say now is not easy at all to do. I'm letting you in advance. The message of today is not easy to do. Let's say that two people have an argument, okay? Reuben and Shimon have an argument. I use fictitious names so nobody feels targeted today. Reuben and Shimon have an argument. Shimon is getting frustrated, and Reuben has the upper hand. No Bechor, two individuals. So the message of today is for us to do the impossible at times. You know what it says today? Concede to Shimon, let's say, in order to minimize the anger. We're not saying that Shimon is right. And again, every argument needs to have some type of foundation, and it needs to be something important. But let's say if the argument is about I like that food or I don't like that food, I like that restaurant or I don't like that restaurant, meaning to say matters that really are irrelevant for life. Big deal. You don't like the food of the restaurant, go to a different one. But there are some people that if they don't have the final word, if they don't feel that they are the upper hand in the argument, they feel bad, they get angry. And I'm not saying that that personality is good. I'm going to tell you one thing. I don't want to be in their shoes. Big time. Ego, ga'ava, it's the brother of anger. Anger often is triggered for the ego and the egoistic and the haughtiness of the person. So here, you know what he's telling us? What are you going to gain by telling him that you are wrong and I am right? Tell him, I see your point. We agree to disagree. Not easy. Not easy at all. He says, but you know what? Do it for the sake of minimizing anger. Not yours, the other fellow that has an issue. Concede for the sake of peace. Unbelievable. It's like somebody asked me, why are you so nice? True story, by the way. I said, first of all, how can I cannot be nice? What do you think the Torah expects me to be, a bully? The Torah wants us to be nice, pleasant, happy, helpful, kind, benevolent, patient, tolerant. I can keep going. But I don't want to put Webster out of business. I gave you plenty of virtues that we should have. So somebody said to me, Rabbi, why are you so nice to this person? I said, I don't understand your question. He tells me, if I would have been in your shoes, I would have done X, Y, Z. So you know me, when you talk to me like that, I say, Baruch Hashem, I'm not you. So why do you say that? Says, I don't understand your comment. If God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for the topic of the sotah, remember sotah, the husband that suspects the wife of inappropriate behavior, God says, go ahead, erase my name for the sake of peace. How I cannot try to make peace between this person and that person? The least I can do is I try. But if I don't try, for sure, nothing is going to change. I got to make the ishtadlut. And I tell you a personal secret. I'm going to tell you a personal secret that they stop to hear the secret. That the only thing that we need to do, especially in this type of scenarios, is to try to make the ishtadlut. Sometimes the ishtadlut pays off. Sometimes, regretfully, it's not easy. But at least trying is required. Because at the end of the day, there is a very famous prayer that we say in the day of Rosh Hashanah, the prayer of Tashlich. Remember, we go to the water and we do the special prayer, and right, betashlich bimsulot yam kol hatotam, and at the end, titen emed leYaakov, exactly, which is the pasuk of today's class. So what exactly does it say towards the end of the prayer of Tashlich? So I'm telling you what it says, that you probably know it already, but it's part of the class, so I have to say it. At the end of the prayer of the Tashlich, there is the famous statement that says, Pitho li petach kehuto shel mahad. In English it means, open for me like the eye of the needle. and I will open up for you the gates of this big hall. So what is this God, what this pasuk is telling us? You know what God is telling us through this verse? Make an opening. Do your ishtadlut. Do your effort. And then I'll do the rest. And that's what it is in life. If it's in business, if it's in shidduchim, if it's in Torah classes, if it's in fundraising, if it's in learning Torah, we make the first step, and Akadosh Baruch Hu, in His great compassion, does the rest. But in order for that ultimate success of blessing to come, we must do the initial effort. It's like the famous story of the fellow that after 120 years goes to Shamaim and says, I want to talk to God. Say, what do you need? I have a complaint against him. Okay, God says, okay, I want to hear. So he says to God, I don't understand. I pray for you every Mosai Shabbat to win the lottery, and I never won. So God asks him, did you buy a ticket? Did you buy the ticket? One ticket. Don't buy two tickets. If you buy two tickets, you're really saying Emunah 1, Emunah 2. No. Emunah 1. So God says, yes, in my book says you will win. But I didn't see that you bought any ticket. So in this funny story, buying the ticket is the ishtadlut. In a shidduch, going out is the ishtadlut. In a cell is the ishtadlut. That's what Akadosh Baruch Hu asks from us. You show me your good faith. It's like sometimes I deal with challenging financial headaches. And people come and tell me stories. And more than once, the lender, let's call them in this case, which claim that the borrower are not paid at all. You know what is a common statement that I hear? Rabbi, I would have been happy if he pays me $100 a month. Hazako Baruch, show me good faith. But don't disappear. Don't ignore. Don't do this. Don't do that. You know, show me your faith. That's it. Okay, you cannot pay in a lump sum. It's like the synagogue. Somebody says to me, I'm not fundraising, but this may be a question that many people have. Okay? It's a question that many people have. Obviously, we're going now to the beautiful campaign. And somebody asked me, how long do the synagogue gives to pay off their commitment? Let's say a person wants to buy a column. Just by the way, we only have 2 left out of 8. 6 are gone. We only have 2 left. Only. That's it. Downstairs. Upstairs we have 2 more, but downstairs 2 left. And the person asked me, how long do I need to pay it? Says, how long do you need? It tells me between a year and a year and a half. Says, Mesiman Tov. And what if I need to extend it to 2 years? I answer, what makes you happy? That's it. You think that a month more or a month less is going to make a difference? It may make a difference, but it's irrelevant. The main thing is that you are happy and you are honored to be part of this new chapter of the synagogue. If you're interested, talk to me afterwards. I'm not selling anything now. Okay, but there's only 2 left in the main lobby. Unbelievable. I make a package for you. We'll talk after. No, you, not him. Him, I got something else. For him, I don't offer him a column. I'll offer him something else. But anyways, let's go back. Now, Ben Adam le'atzmo. Now, how do I activate the midah of today? The midah of honesty of Yaakov, or and the eternity, what Moshe Rabbeinu represents. And you know what he says today? Look back to your life and see what decisions were made. Some are irreversible, but maybe there's certain things that we can correct. And instead of getting stuck, because sometimes, I'm sorry to say this, but I have no other way to say it, sometimes people get stuck in time. People, they get stuck mentally in time, and they have a difficulty of moving forward, which I understand that. And I'm not a professional to tell you what to do. Somebody called me up yesterday, and I said, as much as I want to help, but I'm not a professional in that field. You got to seek professional help. It was a mental health case. I says, I can give you a blessing. I can add your name to the list of prayers, but you may have to see a professional. It happened yesterday. Okay? But it says here that perhaps there's certain aspect or as situations in life that by us recognizing, you know what, I need to change in this. I need to start doing this. I need to stop doing that. I need to reshape my life to make it calmer or more meaningful or more bountiful, whatever scenario the person is able to find. But it says the Sefirah of today, the only way that that can be done is if the person is honest with themselves. You don't have to talk to anybody about this. You don't have to ask anybody. This is between me, myself, and I. You know why? Because nobody knows you like you know yourself. Nobody knows me like I know myself. Nobody knows you like you knows yourself. And that's a pasuk. Yodea Sadiq Nefesh Behemto. The righteous knows their, let's call it, animalistic inclination. Something like that. Now, why you call him a Sadiq? Short answer. Because he's able to recognize his own areas that require improvement. No, that's a different story. No, that's talking about going to war. Koveshet Iso means conquering your Yetzer. That's connected the struggles and the spiritual challenges that a person has. But let's say that I'm here now and I close my eyes and I think, okay, Yosef, what areas do you need to change in your life? So without saying a word, I already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I run out of fingers. I know them. You may say, how come? Impossible. No. If you're honest with yourself, you'll find. And again, the idea is not, God forbid, to bash ourselves. God forbid. That's not the idea. The opposite. That's not good. But I'm saying if a person says, you know what, this week I'm going to work in this area. Next week I'm going to work in that area. Next month I'm going to work in here. And the person, even though you may say, big deal, you want to switch 60 years, 50 years, or whatever amount of years you have in 1 week, yes. It makes a huge difference because it creates sensitivity and awareness. And that is something that only the person can do. I cannot do it for you. You cannot do it for me. Because the change must come from within, not from the outside. Sure, I can guide you and tell you, put on the tefillin like this, try to be calm, try to speak in a more respectful way, respect everyone. I can tell you the general concepts, but the actual self-improvement at the end of the day needs to come from the person themselves. But the Sefirah says that the only way that we can start working on that area is by recognizing our shortcomings. Because if I'm going to say, listen, when you're going to be like me, then you talk. You think I'm bad? There are people who do worse. These are the worst two answers that you can give. Because if you say somebody else does bad or somebody else is worse than me, so that is a consolation of a fool. It's not an intelligent way of realizing the name to change. On the other hand, now we're going to look, I have a few more moments with your permission. We're going to look at the Sefirah of today from a different perspective. And it says as follows. It says, do you know how much pride God has for the Jewish people? Is a pasuk that says in the Navi Yeshaya, Israel asher becha et pa'ar. I can imagine in my brain only, obviously, maybe it's true what I'm going to say now, that God is saying to the Malachim in Shamayim, look at the people at the Safra Synagogue. They're sitting down, learning Torah, enjoying a breakfast, despite the noise of the outside. Despite the noise, they are learning Torah. Many people could have said, I know, too noisy, I'm leaving. Which we respect that. But what do? Okay, there is noise on the outside. We are learning Torah. The sound of Torah brings calmness. And that sound really is a sound of happiness, as I said in the beginning of the class. So it says that whenever a Yehudi does something good, something special, makes the proper choice, makes the right choice, that draws a smile in the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Can you imagine? It brings happiness, pride to Borei Olam. Number one. Number two, it says, Ben Adam LaHavero talks about the concept of assisting the needy. And it brings here a very interesting concept. It says that there are people who go through challenges, physical and medical challenges. I have two cases that I received overnight. One has to do with a child that's coming to America to make a medical complicated surgery in Florida, and a case of somebody who needs a kidney. A kidney. You know, AJ Gindi Renewal, the magnificent organization. And then you ask yourself how people can live with this type of conditions. It's a miracle. Only that HaKadosh Baruch Hu give the strength, and there are malachim in the world willing to step up to the plate and help. A lady called me up and she said to me the other day, I have 2 kidneys. I'd like to donate one. Unbelievable. So now my homework now is to start making the shidduch. Get the information, send the information to New York, to AJ, and let him fly with it. That's what I do. I'm a shatchan. Thank God. Thank God. I told him that I do not want diplomatic license plate for security reasons. Although I have the ambassador plate. I have it. I'm not using it. for safety reasons, of course. But anyways, so it says here that many times the rahamim upon a person that is going through this, not necessarily the compassion is shown through money. Sometimes the compassion can be shown by a prayer. I pray for your refuah shelema. Or the compassion can be shown by giving the person words of encouragement. It says hope. And this is something that with the kidney renewal, it's obvious. How many kidneys renewal already, transplants already renewal did? Over 1,200. Unbelievable. And the most beautiful part of it is that I do not know numbers, but I do know that there are several hundred people, if not over 1,000, willing to donate. But it's not automatically, oh, you have one, okay, I'll take one. No. The medical field, I know a bit, not too much, but there is a something that needs to be compatible. It needs to be compatible. If it's age, if it's gender, if it's lingering medical condition. In other words, there is a couple of answers that they need to be provided to make sure that the shidduch is going to be a healthy one. You understand? But that's already up to the doctors and the people in work. My mission is I have a donor, I have a recipient. Make it fly, make the shidduch. Maybe it doesn't work for this fellow, but it may work for somebody else. And those are miracles that happen more often than we can actually believe they do happen. And since I'm in the battlefield, I know a lot of things that perhaps many people don't get exposed to. And this is part of the midah of today as well. So, let me see if there is anything else. Okay, he talks here. Just one moment. Remember that fellow that came and asked me, Rabbi, I need permission not to learn Torah in the morning, only to learn at night? Sefirah of today. Sefirah of today. Let me read you what it says. Make the effort to have compassion of people and teach them Torah in the morning, especially on Thursdays. Today is Wednesday. Today is the beginning of the week. From Kabbalistic perspective, Shabbat finished last night and the new week starts today. But that's only from a Kabbalistic angle. Don't worry about it. Shabbat's coming in 3 days, so relax. But look at divine providence. I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to send it to him. It says, concerning your question that you asked me, the Sefirah of today says, calm down. Keep learning, because if you have this challenge and you throw in the towel, it's like you need to collect the grand prize from the lottery, and it says, I don't want to travel to Tallahassee to collect more than $600. You understand? My dear friends, Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Hananiah ben Akashi Omer, צא הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל לפיכך ולאין תורה מצוות שנאמר למען צדקו ליל תורה